Welcome to another episode of our video series of the personal transformation and self-knowledge.
Hello. It's great to be here again.
How are you doing? I'm feeling really energized for this one. I think this topic is incredibly timely.
I agree. We've been laying the groundwork, haven't we?
We have. We recently mapped out those 8 keys to transformation. Intention, courage, wisdom, the whole framework.
Right. The architectural blueprint for a new self. But, and this is the big but, knowing the plan is one thing. Actually, starting the construction is something else entirely.
And that's where so many people stall out. The research we've analyzed points to this huge internal force that just sabotages our best intentions.
It's a hidden poison, really. And it's not always something obvious like fear. It's the manifestation of that fear.
The thing we call complaint.
Exactly. Or shikayat, to use the original term.
So that's our mission today. We're going to unpack why complaint is so much more destructive than just, venting.
And, crucially, how we can use the brain's own plasticity to rewire ourselves away from it.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Because not all complaint is bad, right? I mean, there's a useful side to it.
Oh, absolutely. Complaint is a natural right. It can be a very useful tool. It's a detection mechanism.
So, if a service is bad and I go on a website and register my dissatisfaction.
And the company fixes it.
Right. Then the complaint served a purpose. It created action.
Precisely. That's a complaint that moves. The danger zone is when the complaint gets stuck.
Stuck? What do you mean?
I mean, it becomes just a statement of a bad situation, a permanent diagnosis with no treatment.
Okay. It's like running a diagnostic test on your car, seeing the engine failure report, and then just taping it to the dashboard and keeping driving.
That's a perfect analogy, and we see it everywhere. People use external problems as reasons for their own inaction.
All the time. The economy's bad, so I can't start a business. The weather's awful, so I can't exercise.
My boss is a nightmare, so I can't do good work. We take these real things and turn them into internal brakes.
We become people who do nothing but complain. So if this is an act of avoidance, what's actually happening inside the brain? What's the biology here?
This is where it gets really fascinating. Our brains have this sort of internal switchboard, an intermediary station. Every single stimulus goes there first.
Okay, a switchboard.
And when a negative stimulus comes in, you're stuck in traffic, you feel frustrated. That switchboard has to make a choice. It has 2 options.
Path A or path B?
Exactly. Path A is courage, says Esaret. If we choose that path, the switchboard directs the data forward to the prefrontal cortex.
The logical problem-solving part of the brain?
The part that says, okay, traffic is bad, let me find an alternate route, let me call ahead.
And path B?
Path B is stress and avoidance. The switchboard sends that same signal inward to the middle brain, the stress center.
The amygdala.
The fight-or-flight zone.
That's the one. And complaint. Complaint is the sound that system makes. It's the audible evidence that your stress center is in control. Wow. So every time we complain, without acting, we are literally strengthening the neural wiring that leads straight to the panic button.
You're paving a highway to the stress center, which leads to this core principle we found.
The incompatibility principle.
Yes, courage, Esaret, and complaint, shikayat, are neurobiologically incompatible. They cannot exist in the same body at the same time.
That's a huge statement. You're saying it's literally one or the other.
It's one or the other. They run on different circuits. If you are complaining, your stress center is firing, and you are incapable of accessing the courage circuit.
And if you're acting with courage,
the complaint circuit is silent. The rule is just that simple. If there is complaint, there is no courage. If there is courage, there is no complaint.
Okay, so if the rule is that absolute, we need a manual override. We need a way to flip that switchboard ourselves.
And there is one. It's a cognitive intervention that is so simple it almost sounds too good to be true.
I'm ready.
It's called the but clause.
The but clause.
The rule is, whenever you catch yourself stating a complaint sentence, you must immediately, and I mean immediately, follow it with the word but and a second sentence.
And that second sentence has to be what?
An exit strategy, a solution, a benefit, any kind of forward movement.
Let's do an example. The air quality is terrible today, so I can't go for my run.
You follow it with, but I can do a 20-minute workout video inside instead.
Okay, or this project is so overwhelming, I don't even know where to start.
But I can spend the next 15 minutes just outlining the first section. The solution doesn't have to be massive, it just has to be in action.
But is it really that simple? A single word. What about huge systemic problems? The world is in a terrible state. How does a but fix that?
That's a critical question. The but isn't meant to solve the world's problems instantly. It's meant to solve the problem of your internal paralysis.
Ah, I see. It's about shifting your own brain from victim mode to actor mode.
Precisely. It changes how you process the reality, not the reality itself.
And what's happening neurologically when that little word but is spoken?
The brain imaging is incredible. It's almost instant. While you're complaining, the amygdala is just firing nonstop. The sources describe it as a car noise, like a grinding static.
Okay.
The moment the word but is introduced, that amygdala activity is, it's silenced. It just stops.
No way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the same instant, the prefrontal cortex, the front and upper parts of the brain, lights up.
So you're literally flipping the switch. You're going from tanning mode to planning mode with one word.
You've got it. You switch from fight, flight, or freeze to find a solution, clear the path, and walk the path.
And for people who just can't make that stick, I remember the sources mentioning a sort of negative reinforcement.
A personal penalty, yes. The goal is to make the pain of complaining greater than the pain of acting. So if you complain without adding a but clause, maybe, no dessert that night.
Or some other small personal punishment.
It's something to teach your brain that inaction has a cost. It's about raising the stakes on your own inertia.
This all brings us to a really serious warning about what happens if you let that courage circuit go unused for too long.
Yes. If courage, says Esaret, is a muscle you never flex, the sources say the C eventually just breaks off.
And you're left with Esaret.
Which means captivity, bondage.
So you become a prisoner.
A prisoner of your own life.
Fair?
Enslaved by your fears, your habits, your addictions. You're locked down by the very circumstances you were complaining about.
And we have to be clear, courage here isn't, some dramatic Bruce Willis-style heroism.
Not at all. Courage is microscopic. It's starting that one difficult email. It's having that 5-minute awkward conversation. It's taking one small step against the tide of inertia.
But it's so hard when we're swimming in it. We live in what the sources call a complaint civilization.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It feels like everyone has a PhD in professional complaining.
It's mentally exhausting.
It is, and that's why our social ecology is so important. The saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
So if they're all professional complainers?
They are constantly reinforcing your stress pathways. It's like secondhand smoke for your brain.
So you have to protect yourself, maybe even distance yourself from people who refuse to stop.
It's an act of self-preservation. You have to intentionally surround yourself with people who take action, people who live by the but clause.
So it all comes down to a choice then, a choice you're making in every moment.
A neural choice. Every time you complain and stay stuck, you strengthen the stress center. Every time you add that but and act, you strengthen the problem-solving center. You are literally choosing which brain you're going to have tomorrow.
So for you, the listener, that's the takeaway. You're building your brain with every thought.
And we have to leave you with this last sobering thought. Animals, they don't anticipate future suffering. Only humans do that. We have this unique gift of foresight.
But when we refuse to use the courage that foresight demands,
we turn that gift into a weapon against ourselves. We create our own mental hell. We choose Esaret, captivity.
There is still breath. There is much work to do, many steps to take, and much hope required. The world expects serious help from you. Don't deprive it of your unique contribution. So we'll challenge you with this. What simple, non-dramatic step of courage are you taking today to break a lifelong habit of complaint?
Thank you for joining us for this analysis. We'll be back soon to look at another complex piece of the human puzzle.